Welcome to the Red and Gold Report, your best source for weekly updates on your Kansas City Chiefs. In this episode, we're going to be looking at a big training camp announcement. We're also going to be looking at a recent article that did not put the Chiefs as the most talented team in the league. We're going to be looking at Pro Football Focus's top 50 players and see how many Chiefs made that list. And we're going to be breaking down the Chiefs' offensive tackle position headed into the season. And hey, if you want to get weekly Chiefs news and updates brought to you by a guy who is so pale that you would probably think he could get sunburnt in the middle of the night, then subscribe to this channel. The Chiefs recently announced some big training camp news. Camp is going to start Wednesday, July 28th. It will once again be open to the public, to which every Chiefs fan said yes. However, it will once again be returning to St. Joseph, to which every Chiefs fan said, oh, please no anywhere but St. Joseph. Last time I visited St. Joe, I got to see a robbery taking place as I rolled into town, and that somehow ended up not being the worst thing I saw during my thankfully brief visit. In other news, Pro Football Focus recently ranked the top 50 players in the NFL. 4 Chiefs made the list. Mahomes came in second to Aaron Donald, Travis Kelce came in third, Tyreek Hill came in 18th, Chris Jones 19th, and yet again, I was mysteriously left off the list. In news about news, Andy Reid was recently ranked the top coach in the NFL by CBS Sports. He's certainly the league's most likable coach. Andy always reminds me of the Kool-Aid Man. He's red, round, and everyone's always happy to see him. After the ranking, Bill Belichick, who came in second place, denied any attempts at deflating Big Red Andy Reid. In other news about news, NFL.com recently ranked every team by their overall talent. The Chiefs came in third, while the Browns came in first. Yes, the same Browns team that the Chiefs beat with a backup quarterback in the playoffs last season, the same Browns team who failed to win their own division last year, the same Browns team whose offense scored less points than their defense allowed last year. NFL.com thinks that they're the most talented roster in the NFL. So I think the big takeaway here is just that I guess we learned that the NFL.com team doesn't have a no drinking at work policy. With that news done, we're going to be turning our attention to breaking down another position group. Last week on our weekly updates, we looked at the wide receivers, and this week, at the request of a viewer named Pete Rhodes, we're going to be looking at the offensive tackle position. As we're still lamenting, the Chiefs lost the Super Bowl, possibly mostly attributed to really awful offensive tackle play. Both our offensive tackles were injured for the Super Bowl, and the Chiefs' backup offensive tackles looked as bad as the Raiders' 10-year plan. We knew changes were coming this offseason, and everything has indeed changed with the offensive tackle spot for the Chiefs. Early in the offseason, the Chiefs cut Eric Fisher, who had been with the team since 2013. But it made a lot of sense. Last year was the second season in a row Fisher went down with a major injury and had only ever had one season grading over 78 by Pro Football Focus. The Chiefs also cut starting right tackle Mitchell Schwartz. Schwartz had played at an all-pro level for a few years for the Chiefs, but regressed last season before going down with a serious back injury. While it certainly hurts to lose him, the Chiefs just could not take a risk paying big bucks with his back still being an unknown. While these two cuts were really hard, they made a lot of sense. Both players were over 30, both had serious injury questions, and they had a combined savings of $18.3 million against the cap. So who'd we bring in instead? Well, the Chiefs' very biggest offseason move overall in all the team was trading for left tackle Orlando Brown Jr. In his first 2 seasons, Orlando Brown played right tackle for the Baltimore Ravens. But with the Ravens starting left tackle hurt last year, Brown shifted over to the left tackle spot, and he played really well. Actually, he played so well that during the offseason, he just refused to move back to right tackle. He wanted to be a left tackle, and he asked the Ravens to trade him. The Ravens obliged and sent him to the Kansas City Chiefs for our first round pick. This was a hilariously terrible trade for the Ravens, since they've got to know that if they want to go to the Super Bowl, they're going to have to come through Kansas City. I mean, this would be like trying to beat somebody at Monopoly, but you trade them your boardwalk for their Baltic Avenue. What are you doing? But it's the biggest move of the offseason for the Chiefs. So here's his strengths. Orlando Brown is only 25 years old, and he was about the 10th best left tackle in the league last year. He is an enormous human being. At 6'8". He's listed at 344, but he looks closer to 360 pounds. He's best in pass protection because it takes forever to get around an object that large. He also has the pedigree, with his dad, Orlando Brown Sr., being a great tackle for the Ravens and the Browns in the 90s. He also has exactly what the Chiefs are looking for in an offensive tackle, which is durability. He's never missed a game in his 3 seasons in the NFL. His negatives is that he's not really in good shape. His body looks like if you just popped open a fresh can of Pillsbury biscuits. But the other concern is you gotta pay him at some point. He's entering the final year of his contract this season, and he's going to command upwards of $20 million, probably more a year next year, which is going to be really hard for a Chiefs team that's already projected to be way over the salary cap in 2022. And while he's not a top 5 left tackle, he's going to get paid like it. But for now, all Chiefs Kingdom is rejoicing in Brown being a massive upgrade at left tackle, which brings us to right tackle. Last offseason, veteran offensive lineman Mike Rimmers was signed to a small 1-year deal in free agency as a backup. But with the injuries and the opt-outs along the offensive line last year, Rimmers ended up playing over 700 snaps. He was bouncing between guard and right tackle. He actually played really admirably in the regular season, particularly at guard. But then when Eric Fisher went out in the playoffs, Rimmers was plugged into the left tackle spot in the Super Bowl. Fortunately for the Chiefs, he was spun around as fast as a windmill in a Kansas tornado. In a surprising move, the Chiefs re-signed him to a 1-year deal to start at right tackle worth at least $3.3 million, but with incentives, it could be worth as much as $6.8 million. That is a lot of cheddar for a player who was an admirable backup, but a below-average starter at right tackle. On a side note, if you know of a job where I can make $6.8 million being below average, please let me know. I have proven to be exceptional at being slightly below average at a lot of things. The best case scenario at right tackle really would be if Lucas Niang could beat out Rimmers for the starting spot. This would give the Chiefs a right tackle with a lot more potential, but it would also allow Rimmers to return to being a backup at guard and right tackle, which is just a better spot for him. Niang was a 3rd-round pick out of TCU in 2020, so 2 drafts ago. But last season, he opted out with the pandemic, which means that effectively he's going to have to overcome the rookie season learning curve and knock the rust off after being away from football for a year. In college, he had long arms, a good anchor, a good frame, and he graded out well in pass protection. But his technique, it was as ugly as Mark Davis. After Brown, Rimmers, and Niang, the cupboard is bare for the Chiefs at tackle. The only other player to note is that guard Andrew Wiley does have experience sliding over into the right tackle spot, but he did not play well there last year. So I would not be shocked if the Chiefs brought in a veteran at some point late in the offseason. Actually, bringing back Mitchell Schwartz in a cheaper deal, that'd be a great option. Russell Okung from Carolina, Rick Wagner from Green Bay, those could also be veterans to consider that could start at right tackle. But that brings us to another big question mark, and that's who's going to be the backup left tackle? This proved to be a crippling question when unanswered last season, and the Chiefs are going into another season without anyone who can slide into that left tackle spot if Brown gets hurt. So overall, I'm going to give the Chiefs' offensive tackle position a B headed into the season right now. Bringing in Orlando Brown is an A+ move. But the right tackle position is a concern, and there is no plan at the backup left tackle position. So there's your Chiefs news. For more weekly updates and all the Chiefs news you need, make sure to subscribe to the Red and Gold Report. Thanks for watching. Go Chiefs.